I'm sober. I don't know what's left to say. What exactly am I supposed to say? Everything's lost in the gray. How can I make all of this okay? I don't wanna face.
Lost in the Gray, which I've heard from some people that we've submitted this to, that Lost in the Gray sets a lot of world building.
That's what they say.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Lose You starts out with the subway train announcements, and it slowly pushes you in the direction that you're eventually going to end up in Queens Boulevard. But Lost in the Gray feels like it closes that, because the train arrives at the station like you're going home and you're done. That's it.
I'm glad they felt that way, because that's what we were going for.
Yeah, they really like the world building of that song. Like, that's something we got a lot of praise for, was talking about how a lot of artists don't like give nods to where they were from. So like us starting an EP with where we came from is a big deal to like some people, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's also more part of our identity.
Yeah, yes, it is.
I've been that New York kid in Northwest Indiana for a fucking long time.
Yep, same.
My God, say water. Water. Fucking.
I've been here long enough that my accent's completely gone.
Yep. It only comes out when I'm angry or drunk.
Yep. Where I am a stranger in my own hometown, but I'm also a stranger in Northwest Indiana.
It doesn't come back to you when you go back to New York?
No.
Because when I go back to New York,
just a little bit.
when I go back to New York to visit, maybe 3 weeks to a month, I have the accent again.
Yep.
And then it goes away
Yep.
to this nondescript
Yep.
Midwesterner accent.
Yep.
It's like, if you were trying to not do an accent, Northwest Indiana is where you want to go to not do an accent. Bland. That'll piss off the people that live here.
I don't know what's left to say. What exactly am I supposed to say? Everything's lost in the gray. How can I make all of this okay? I don't wanna face today. I don't wanna face what I have to face. Everything's lost in the gray without you.
A lot of Lost in the Gray, like, so like for the majority of the Neon Nostalgia EP, I tried to stay away from stuff that I could tie back to being personal experience. Like Drunk on Queens Boulevard, I was 8 when I left New York City, so it's not possible for me to be drunk then. That would be really a bad situation. But for Lost in the Gray specifically, it's the one where I actually do have some kind of personal tie to the song. It was like I went through a pretty nasty breakup when I was like a late teenager, and it was just kind of like the next day waking up after you know that that's like over, and you feel like everything coming back to you and attacking you every day. You feel like you don't want to wake up. You feel like you just want to sit there and be asleep the entire time, stay in your room. You don't want to leave.
See your friends.
Get locked in. And I kind of felt like gray is the most like neutral color. Like I kind of felt like being stuck in like a bunch of like gray clouds and gray atmosphere. Kind of felt like it fit the song in that way. So it was just like more of like trying to remember that day when I went through that. And it was like the first real bad one. So you always remember the first real bad one. So I really like tried to pull from that inspiration, and that was really mainly what that song was about. Like all the other ones, they have like a little bit of my personal experience in them, but Lost in the Grave definitely does have some. So
Yeah. I feel like in most of my writing, I draw from either experiences or I put myself in scenarios like, how would I feel in this scenario?
Been a few weeks now with no sleep. Need an alarm just to remember to eat. The stew beef cuts deep. Body feels beat. Snatch the open window seat to watch the train pass my stop.
I can't remember if I wrote my verse knowing what it was about or if you told me after the fact.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I found out after the fact and I was like, well, that worked out perfectly then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just writing based off your writing without knowing
Yeah.
that it was the specific memory that it was built on. Yeah, it's just being depressed and not wanting to be better. Like, there's a real catharsis in depression where it's like, even though it's terrible, and even though it's like, you have all these negative thoughts, and it's almost like a blanket that you can't get out from underneath, and you don't want to wake up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, my verse kind of heavily reflects that, you know. When he talks about, you know, the train passing his stop, and oddly it's a sweet relief.
Yep.
Because he doesn't want anything right to go. He doesn't want anything good to happen to him. He's feeling negative and he wants that to be reinforced by the world around him.
Yeah.
And I think that's about the lowest of the low that you could probably feel after a breakup. Yeah. Not a great place to be in.
No.
But I think a lot of people relate to it.
Yeah.
Also, I really like in the chorus, it's the only song that there's call and response.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. I really like the chorus. Especially since we've been influenced by so many bands that do dual vocals, including, but not limited to, Taking Back Sunday and
that whole Long Island emo scene came.
No, not Blink. Blink was out California.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Blink
TBS.
is an influence, but for like the New York side of it, like Taking Back Sunday and Brand New, those are like some of the major influences that I had. Like just being like influenced in that music, and that happened partially while I lived in Long Island and then partially while I didn't. So like I got to see the start of things and then got to finish it when I was in Northwest Indiana.
Without you, my best laid plans, they melt away from these gray walls. There's no escape. You leave me here to drown in gray. It's all my fault, that's what they say.
The end part of that song is like really inspired by, like, I talk about like the four walls, but it's not just literally a metaphor. Like my bedroom walls were actually gray. So like it was literally about just staying in that.
My bedroom walls were also gray.
So
It was the first time I got to choose a color, and I was like, really into Slipknot?
yeah.
I was like, fucking paint my walls gray, Mom. And then I just dealt with that from like age 14 until I moved down unsuccessfully, went to college.
Yeah. Yeah.
That probably didn't help. That choice. I had many, a sad time in that room.
I tried not to make it like how my normal kind of vocal goes. Like I wanted to really like lean into like the very, because I do have a little bit of a grunge influence to some of the stuff that I do. Like I like, obviously everybody talks about Nirvana, but like even some of the early Foo Fighters stuff was very grungy, and then like Soundgarden and stuff like that. So like I really wanted to lean into like that, making my vocals just a little bit dirty, like not being as clean as they were, because it's the line like my best laid plans, like it, there's nobody's ever prepared for when that happens, but you're always like trying to look forward for any kind of like solitude that you could have for that, and them just being melted away and not being able to really handle that it's kind of like a response in a way. Like dirtiness of the vocals kind of like gets in the face of like these plans that were good and now bad to you. So
also I like just the symbolism of, I was about to say symbology because I was thinking of Boondock Saints
Yes.
and Willem Dafoe. He's like, what's the symbology of that? And so like in my own head, I'm like saying that'll be funny. And I'm like, no, not without context. It wouldn't be funny at all. But the symbolism of being lost in the gray, like gray is a color, like it's murky.
Yeah.
It's an unclear color. You don't know what to feel because it's kind of neutral, but it's on the darker side of neutral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the idea of being lost in it, like, it's also like, it draws images to me personally of like faces that I used to love and cherish. Now they're becoming like gray. They're becoming, faceless instead of, you know what I mean? People are becoming just shadows. Kind of thing. So I kind of like how that plays on that, being lost in the gray.
It also comes as like a contrast to like the theme of like the EP, where it's like it's neon nostalgia, but that last song is like it's about like that muted color,
a heavy shade of gray.
Yep. And that muted color of like gray, it's funny because gray is actually like one of the most like associated colors with a large city. Like everything's concrete, everything's gray, trains are gray, the like there's so much metal and stuff that it
subways
fits.
And also, I mean, it kind of fits the mood of cities too. At least the cities that I've been to, New York.
Yep.
I mean, there were 2 times in my life where I remember like people being nice, just in a general beat. Nobody's got time. Nobody's got time to give a fuck about you or your problems in New York.
Focused.
9/11.
Yep.
That lasted like, man, maybe 6 months. It was like 6 months of people holding open doors for each other, like strangers just being nice to each other, compassionate.
Yeah.
And then there was a brownout one year. I don't remember what year it was.
I do. I was there.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. I was visiting my dad. This was when I was already living out here, and I had visitation with Pops. And I said it like I went to prison. Yeah, I had visitation. So I did hard time in Indiana.
I'll say it was 2002.
Regardless of when it was, it doesn't matter. I just remember Tiamo and 7-Eleven. They were giving away ice cream. And I remember like being so hot and angry that I couldn't sleep at night, but so stoked the next day when I got free ice cream from Tiamo and 7-Eleven, because they were just giving it away because it was going to spoil.
Yep.
And I remember just people being like chilling outside of 7-Eleven, eating ice cream, not a care in the world.
You definitely had the better story than I did. We went with one of my childhood best friends to. We went out to visit New York so that we could show him around, and my dad and my brother and my sister and I and that best friend, and we were walking around downtown, and we were in Chinatown, and all of a sudden the power just cut in the middle of the street.
That's a good place to be for the power cut out.
And there were just people like running back and forth, like trying to get across the street, because the taxi cabs, they were like, it's not, those signs out, whatever, we're just gonna go.
It was the Wild West.
Yep.
These are our roads now, pedestrians. You guys want to just jaywalk whenever you want.
Yep. So yeah, I remember that. And the only like there's a couple of strong memories I remember that, other than it being completely dark, like all of the lights were out in Manhattan, so it was weird just seeing no lights, like being able to see the stars in the sky and everything. And it being really hot. It was like 98 or like almost 100 that day. And we were sitting outside of Grand Central Station trying to get home, because our hotel was in Long Island. So we took the train in for the day to get out there.
Have gotten a hotel. The city would.
Yeah, I mean, everything was shut. Like, you couldn't do anything.
You probably. I'm thinking of it from my worldview, so I'm like, you can't afford a hotel. Like, I know your dad's finances in this particular moment in time. You know, your family's finances. Like, no, you wouldn't want to pay for a hotel in New York City. That's crazy, because that's what I think of when people are like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to New York. Do you have any suggestions?" Like, commute to the city, dude. Like, either stay in Jersey and take the Turnpike or whatever, or the George Washington, or stay on Long Island, and take the train.
No, we had I remember because we had to like obviously there were like you couldn't go into places because people were scared they were like people were gonna steal stuff. So like the hotels were actually open as like going to be able to use the restrooms and stuff because what else were they going to be able to do? And there were people with like candles and stuff, and they give you a candle and you'd go to the bathroom or whatever you needed to do. And yeah, it was a little crazy. And then
Spooky pee.
yeah, and then we had the only other thing I can remember from that was it was so hot outside, and there was like a band stuck outside of Grand Central with us, and they started playing "Let It Snow" on saxophone while we were out there.
Oh,
Yeah, people were really mad. Everybody was just sitting down, laying down on the street, and it was like everybody got to
everybody's
see what it was
miserable.
like, yeah, and then the power. Yeah.
I would have lost it, dude.
And then the power was out, so like all the trains in New York are electrified, even the ones that go out to the suburbs. So
You weren't catching a train.
we were not catching a train home. We caught a bus home, and the bus followed the train route. But by the time it got to the train route, the train stop that I was at, which was Ronkonkoma, which is the end of the line for most lines, the bus broke down before we got to our train stop. So they had to bring another bus to come and get us. But yeah, I remember the blackout.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, at least I didn't go anywhere. I was just at my dad's apartment.
And I don't think we're the only one that was that we were the only ones involved in that, like in a weird way, because a band that I listened to, the Ataris, their song on the Spider-Man soundtrack, and it's like one of my favorite songs that they never play. It's called "The Night the Lights Went Out in New York City." It's on the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack.
And it's specifically about a brownout?
I guess it must have been inspired by it or something, because what else did that happen? It happened in the 70s, I think. And that's it. So, yep.
Fun little fact about the Atars.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
That second verse, I tried to like really change the way my voice worked in that second one. And it's going to sound weird, but my inspiration for that, for how I did the vocals for that verse, was actually inspired by the guy who does the singing for the Muppets.
really.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
great.
On the last Daft Punk album, there's a song called Touch, and he does it. If you compare my vocals to that, you'll know where I got the inspiration from. Like, so that specific song, yeah, or that part of the song, the verse is definitely inspired by that.
In my verse,
Yeah.
I mean, I drew on my experiences too, but like, it was more just like the hopelessness, sadness. Like, this new leaf cuts deep.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna turn over a new
Yeah.
leaf. Oh, I'm gonna be so much better without you.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard starting over, especially when you're that invested. You know, I miss a version of you that feels like it died. Like, that's something that I remember thinking in the moment after a bad breakup. Like, yeah, I don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah.
Like, the person that I did know, the person that I did care for, like, she doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That's the truth. You know, what you meant to me, like, you'll never mean that again, and I'll never mean that to you. It's crazy to think, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I just left high school. I feel like I just graduated high school, and I'm 33. Like, I can't tell you where the time went. And I remember being a kid, and all the adults being like, "I want to enjoy being a kid." It was like, "Shut up, old man." And now I'm the old man being like, "You want to enjoy your youth?"
Yeah. No.
Pretty soon you'll be middle aged.
Yeah. Like, those memories were like 20 years ago. So like it's weird how your mind just records those things.
Yeah.
And like you can, the sound, even just the sound of what we were creating kind of just tied it back to where I was at that moment in time.
You can't help but kind of relive it as you write it. You would have to be either well in control of your psyche or maybe a complete psychopath to just be like, oh yeah, that traumatic thing that happened. Fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah.